Hello and welcome to John's Author Diary for the weekend in March the 25th, 2018. I'm still editing Blind Gambit. I'm coming to the end of my second draft, and on the whole it's going well. I've got about 8,000 words left to do of the first draft manuscript, and so far I've added about 14,000 words, so it's now within the realms of what I consider to be a good length for a novel. Now, I did have the weird thing, I think it was on Thursday, where I got to a point in my story and I realised there were 2 scenes missing. I checked old versions of the document, and for some reason I just could not find these scenes. Now, I definitely wrote them, but something must have happened in copying them across or something like that. I don't really know where they are, so I ended up having to go back and rewrite them. So that took me back about a day, getting those chapters redone. And because I had the outline, and because I'd already written it, it wasn't too taxing, it was more just the pain in the backside of having to redo it. So the way things are looking, I think I'll have the second draft complete by Tuesday, which means I'm way ahead of schedule, because I saw on my calendar the other day that I've got March 30th down as my deadline to get the first draft complete. And going through it, I'm still really happy with the story. I've not had to add any scenes, so I think this is again testament to having a good outline and knowing that everything's in place and works before I commit too much to the page. Now, what I'm finding with the editing is I am starting to get a bit of eye strain. I am finding that it's frying my head a little bit. And so I think in the future, I'm going to see if I can work in a way where, say, I write a first draft of something in the morning and then edit another project in the afternoon. I know that once I've got Blind Gambit done, I've got my contribution to the Black Death trilogy to rewrite and do a second draft of. I'll admit that I'm a little bit daunted about going straight into that, just in terms of the physical strain that the editing process does take on me. So once I've done that draft, I'm going to have a week or so off, because my son has just broken up from school for his Easter holiday. So he's gone to stay with his grandma for a couple of nights, and then he's going to come back here on Tuesday. So I need to have Blind Gambit done and ready by then before I have my week and a half off. I've just had a really fun weekend in Manchester. I went to see some friends and we stayed at a hotel. So there was me, my wife, and another couple who I used to go to university with. And we'd booked to go and see the Flight of the Conchords comedy show at the Arena. And unfortunately, one of the members had broken his hand, so the show was cancelled, but we'd booked hotels and trains and things like that, so we just decided to have a nice night out in Manchester. And so we went for a meal and had some drinks, and it was fun. I was very impressed with how Digit worked around the city. We live in a small coastal town, and there's not a lot to challenge him, and I think that going around Manchester on a Friday night was a challenge for him, and he rose to it. I think what struck me about being in Manchester that must be quite a recent thing is just the sheer number of homeless people there are. It was really sad. There were literally hundreds of people on the streets begging, and now I've been to Manchester on and off for years, and this is the worst by far I've ever seen it. Without getting too political, I think we've seen a lot of cuts in this country that have had an effect on some of the most vulnerable people in our society, and I think that that was just a real stark example of it. So although it was a good night, it was also tempered by that. On a brighter note, I read Terry Pratchett's book Thud, definitely one of his better ones. I came to the conclusion after reading it that Samuel Vimes is probably my favourite character in anything. I just love the way he sees the world and the way his relationships seem real. So yeah, I gave that 5 stars, really enjoyed it. I'm also right near the end of the book of The Unnamed Midwife by Meg Ellison, which is a post-apocalyptic novel about a woman trying to survive after a plague wipes out most women and makes it very difficult for children to be born. Now, the reason I read this book is because someone who'd read something of mine said it reminded her of that. So I checked it out, and I can see where she was coming from. There was elements of it being very character-driven, that there's a lot of stuff about religion and about finding hope in a hopeless world, which is a theme in my Wasteland series. So I've got the audiobook and I'm about half hour from the end, and I really recommend that as well. Depending on how the last half hour goes, I'm veering somewhere between 4 to 5 stars. I mean, if there was a 4.5 star button on Goodreads, then I'd click that, but there isn't. But yeah, very good, very sad, but again, that glimmer of hope, which I think is really important in post-apocalyptic stuff. Just want to give a quick shout out to Claire Sager, who got married this weekend. Just want to send you my congratulations and wish you all the best for a long and happy marriage. So I've had no questions this week. If you want to send them, it's john@johncronshaw.com. That's JONCRONSHAW. You can follow me on Twitter. It's @JLCronshaw. And if you haven't done so already, you can read Addict of the Wasteland, which is the prequel to my Wasteland series, for free. Simply go to tinyurl.com/getmyprequel. So until next time, cheerio.